The condemned man didn't speak. He hadn't spoken much in months. Not to the chaplain, not to the guards, not even when the appeals ran dry. He just stared through the bars like he was already gone. But when the K-9 padded into the execution chamber that morning, something cracked. The man leaned forward. The dog stopped a few feet away, ears high, tail stiff, not wagging, not growling, just waiting. And then the inmate did something no one expected. He whispered one word. The dog whimpered, stepped forward, and what happened next stopped every clock in that prison. Even time held its breath. The prison stood alone in the Tennessee Valley, its concrete walls bathed in permanent dusk no matter the hour. The fog rolled in low most mornings, curling along the razor-wire fences like ghosts too stubborn to leave. Everything about the place felt still, too still, like it was holding its breath for something it didn't want to see happen. Inside, Warden Cole Murphy poured a third cup of black coffee he wouldn't drink. He'd been up since 3:10 a.m., woke from a dream he couldn't remember but left his hands clenched. The execution was scheduled for 6 o'clock. Lyle Mercer, 42, convicted of a double homicide of a teenage girl and her father, 12 years on death row. All appeals denied. Morning. Came a low voice from behind. It was Officer Shafat, K-9 handler, broad-shouldered, always quiet. The dog at his heel was Jarman, sable-colored with sharp eyes and a reputation for knowing things before people did. He didn't bark much, just watched. Cole gave a slow nod. "You sure about this?" Shafat scratched behind the dog's ear. He asked for the dog. Only thing he's asked for in weeks. Said it was part of his last request. Cole frowned. He never met the dog before. "I know." They both turned toward the security monitor, showing a split-screen view of Mercer's cell and the hallway leading to the execution chamber. Mercer sat cross-legged on the bunk, eyes hollow, staring at nothing. No cuffs. Cole asked. "Didn't ask for them," Shafat replied. "Didn't refuse them either. Just said, let the dog in first." Cole chewed the inside of his cheek. "Get him ready." The walk to the chamber was always quiet, but that morning it felt worse. Mercer didn't resist, didn't flinch, didn't speak. He walked barefoot, slow, like every step hurt even if his face didn't show it. The guards kept a respectful distance. The chamber was cold. Bleach lingered in the air, mixed with steel and something older, something like fear. The cot had already been prepared, restraints neatly folded like pressed laundry. Jarman entered first. The dog sniffed once, looked left, then turned his head toward Mercer as he entered. Their eyes locked, and Mercer did something strange. He knelt. A murmur passed through the observation glass. The witnesses, some press, 2 members of the victim's family, and a preacher, had been briefed on protocol. No outbursts, no talking. But the sight of a condemned man kneeling before a dog silenced even the shallowest breath. Mercer's hand trembled as he reached forward, palm open. Jarman didn't move. Not yet. Then the inmate whispered something. Shafat couldn't make it out, but Jarman responded. Not with a growl, not with a bark, with a low whine and a slow, cautious step toward the man. One step, then another. He reached Mercer and sat. The condemned man closed his eyes and exhaled like something enormous had been let go. "It wasn't me," he whispered. Cole stiffened in the control booth. "What did he just say?" one of the techs muttered. "He said it wasn't him," Cole replied flatly. But he'd heard that before, from every man who'd ever faced that cot. Only this time, the dog didn't back away. Jarman placed his head in the man's lap, and the room broke. 15 years earlier, Hartsville, Tennessee. Sheriff Grace Atwood had been the lead on the Mercer case. Grace didn't smile much, even back then. She had a face made for newsprint in courtrooms, sharp, lined early, always watching. The double homicide rocked their small town. Anna Delgado and her father, Samuel, found beaten and stabbed in their farmhouse kitchen. No forced entry. No theft. Just rage. The only thing missing was Anna's dog, a golden retriever named Milo. He'd vanished that night and never turned up. Mercer had been Anna's former teacher, once suspended for an inappropriate text. Nothing explicit, just concerning. After months of legal pressure, the jury took 2 days to sentence him. No DNA, no confession, just motive, proximity, and a search history on his laptop that no one could unsee. Grace delivered the arrest warrant herself. But now, 15 years later, she watched the execution from her living room couch, whiskey in hand, TV muted. She hadn't planned to watch, but something about hearing K9 present changed her mind. When Jarman laid his head in Mercer's lap, Grace leaned forward so fast the ice clinked in her glass. "What the hell is that dog doing?" she whispered. And just like that, her gut twisted, same way it had the night they found Anna's body. She'd buried that feeling, but now it was crawling back like something that hadn't finished. Inside the prison, 6:04 a.m. "Hold," Cole said sharply into radio. "Do not administer. Something's off." Mercer's hand was on Jarman's fur. The dog wasn't moving. He wasn't resisting either. Shafat walked in carefully. He'd worked with Jarman for 6 years, tracked runaways, found bodies in woods, sniffed out traffickers. But this was new. "You okay?" he asked softly. Mercer didn't lift his head. "He remembers." Shafat blinked. "What?" "He knows I didn't touch that girl." "Then who did?" Mercer looked up, tears in his eyes. "The one who trained him." Shafat froze. Jarman was bred by a retired handler upstate, former detective named Nolan Tress. And Nolan Tress had been the first responder to the Delgado murder scene. Grace stood in her kitchen, now fully awake, pouring the whiskey down the drain. Something was unraveling in her chest, a thread she hadn't tugged on in years. She grabbed her badge from the drawer. She retired 5 years ago. But that badge felt heavier today. And that dog, Jarman, he wasn't lying. Grace pulled out her old case files, hands trembling, in the margin of a typed report from the Delgado scene. K9 Milo recovered by first responder NT. NT, Nolan Tress. He never filed that. And Milo was never found. 6:17 a.m. Execution suspended. Cole slammed the emergency button. "We're holding the order," he barked. "I want everything on that dog's original handler. Call the state. Call whoever the hell you need." Shafat led Jarman gently away. Mercer didn't move. From behind the glass, someone cried. Not the mother of the girl. Not the press. One of the guards. A big man named Darrell, who hadn't missed a single execution in 20 years. Jarman passed him in the hallway, and Darrell dropped to one knee and whispered, "Good boy." The sun hadn't cracked the horizon yet, but Grace Atwood's truck was already crawling up the mountain road. Her breath fogged the windshield, knuckles white on the steering wheel. She hadn't seen Nolan Tress in over a decade. Not since he'd retired early, sold his land cheap, and vanished into the pines. Said he was done with death. Said he wanted peace. Peace doesn't take dogs that don't belong to you. She knew the Delgado case had holes. Knew it in her bones. But the town wanted blood, and Mercer had a face people didn't trust. He never fought back. Never raised his voice. Just looked at everyone like he'd already seen the worst part of his life. And it wasn't prison. She parked outside a sagging cabin with smoke trailing from the chimney. A rusted Ford sat out front. No mailbox. No porch light. But a K9 training sign still hung by the gate, weather-beaten, half-peeled. Tress Tactical Canines. Grace tucked her badge inside her coat and knocked. 2 hours earlier. Prison warden's office. "Start from the beginning," Warden Cole said. His voice was low, unreadable. Shafat sat stiff-backed. Jarman lay quietly at his feet, eyes open, ears forward. 6 years ago, Jarman came from Tress's kennel. Shafat said, "We needed a dual-purpose K9 for narcotics and search." The dog was advanced. Overqualified, honestly. "Ever meet Tress?" Cole asked. "Once." He barely spoke. Let the dog speak for him. Cole rubbed his temple. Mercer said the dog remembers. That he didn't kill Anna Delgado. That Tress did. "Sir," Shafat said, "dogs don't remember like people." "No," Cole said slowly. "But what if the dog recognized something?" They looked down at Jarman. He didn't flinch. Didn't blink. At Tress's cabin. Nolan Tress answered the door in a thermal shirt and jeans. He looked older than Grace remembered. Gaunt, gray-bearded, but the eyes were still cold. "Didn't think you'd come up here alone, Grace," he said. "You still got dogs?" she asked, ignoring the greeting. "One. Not Milo." He blinked. "Just once." She caught it. "You were first on scene at the Delgado house," she said. "Why didn't you log the dog?" He leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. "Because I didn't think it mattered." Bullshit. Milo vanished. Anna's blood was found in his paw fur. You don't forget to log a witness with blood on him. Tress said nothing. Grace stepped closer. "You ever wonder why that case always felt wrong?" "I wonder why you're here after all these years," he said, eyes narrowing. "You already got your conviction. Kid's probably dead by now." "He's not. Execution was halted this morning." Tress stiffened. She saw it. "You trained a dog that knows your scent. Nolan. One who just stared into a man's face and told a room full of guards he wasn't the killer." Tress looked past her, out at the trees. "You never could leave well enough alone, Grace." And then the door slammed. Prison holding cell Mercer. Shafat stood outside Mercer's temporary cell. Mercer sat on the cot, hands folded, no shackles, no cuffs. He hadn't spoken since the chamber. Jarman lay near the bars, watching. "You want to talk about what you said in there?" Shafat asked. Mercer looked up slowly. He remembered his scent. That's why he got quiet. Tress's scent. "I didn't know the girl had a dog," Mercer said. "Not until trial. But someone trained that animal to stay silent." He paused. "Just like me?" Shafat frowned. "Why didn't you say anything back then? Would you believe me? The teacher with the weird messages and bad timing? You needed someone to crucify." Shafat didn't answer. Mercer's voice dropped. "That dog laid his head in my lap. You know why? Because I held Milo the night her body was found. He was shaking in the barn, blood on his fur. He ran from whoever did it, and I ran to him." Shafat stared. The dog was watching Mercer's face, and his tail thumped once. Slow, deliberate. Atwood's returned to the station. Grace hadn't stepped into the county evidence room in 5 years, but some keys still worked. Inside the cold archive, she pulled the Delgado box. She laid everything out on the long metal table. Photos, witness statements, crime scene prints. She found it fast because it wasn't there. No photos of Milo, no logs of retrieval, only an offhand note from Tress, buried in his supplemental report. No K9 present upon arrival, and yet Anna's mother testified the dog had barked all night. Grace scanned the file again and again. Missing pages. Inconsistent timelines. Witnesses' retracted statements after interviews with Tress. And one photograph, never submitted to court. She remembered from scene day but not the trial. Milo, ears back, blood on his front paws, standing by Anna's door. The timestamp? 2 hours before Tress was logged on scene, which meant he'd been there first. Prison, secure evidence room. Where's the Delgado case evidence? Cole demanded. The archivist, thin, jittery, looked confused. Most of it was transferred to state archives after conviction. Except one item, Cole said. "The knife." The archivist blinked. "Sir, the knife was destroyed last year. Policy for closed capital cases." Cole's stomach turned. "Who signed the destruction order?" The man checked the logbook. "Looks like retired Officer Nolan Tress." Shafat swore. Cole stared at the page like it would catch fire. Tress's cabin, nightfall. Grace returned just as the sun dipped behind the trees. This time, she wasn't polite. She kicked the door in. The cabin was empty. No heat, no movement. But the floorboards were muddy. One dish in the sink. Fresh boot tracks. Recent. And in the back room, a kennel. Clean. Too clean. No dog. Just one tag still hanging from the hook. Milo. Prison. Outside Mercer's cell. "You believe him now?" Shafat asked Cole. The warden was pacing. The governor had already been briefed. The stay of execution was extended indefinitely. The Innocence Project had been called, but none of that mattered right now. What mattered was a dog who remembered what men chose to forget. Jarman stood up suddenly, ears rigid, and began to bark. Low, warning, fixed on the far hallway. Cole followed his gaze. Footsteps, boots. Someone was here, outside the prison, 10:41 p.m. A white truck sat parked under floodlights, engine running, no plates, and in the back seat, a wire crate, empty. The alarms didn't go off. Security systems hadn't been tripped. But Jarman was pacing, low growls rumbling from his throat as he hovered near Mercer's cell. His muscles were rigid, his body angled toward the north corridor, where deliveries came in, where patrols rarely passed after dark. Call it in, Warden Cole said. Shafat was already on his radio. Possible breach. North corridor. Lock everything down. Send 2 men to the lot. Check that white truck. Jarman barked once, sharp and urgent. Mercer stood from the cot and pressed his hands to the glass. If he's here, he said, he didn't come to talk. Outside, prison lot, Officer Darrell and a younger recruit moved slowly around the parked white truck. The windows were fogged from the inside. The rear crate was open. Darrell squinted at the dash. Engines warm. No keys, just idling. He opened the driver's side door and froze. Inside the glove box, a .40 caliber pistol, an old badge, and a strip of duct tape with Grace Atwood written across it in Sharpie. Grace Atwood missing. She never made it home. Last phone signal pinged at 8:03 p.m., 5 miles from Tress's cabin. Her cruiser was found parked on a dirt road. Door open, engine off, blood on the steering wheel. Prison, secure floor. Cole's voice dropped an octave. How would Tress get in here? Shafat was scanning the hallway monitors. He's former law enforcement. He still has credentials. Could have forged new ones. Could be in a uniform. Jarman pawed at the cell door, whining now, not in fear. In warning, Cole turned toward Mercer. What does he want? Mercer's face was pale, tight. He's come to clean it up. Loose ends. You're the only loose end. Mercer shook his head slowly. No, he said. The dog is... The attack. It happened in seconds. An explosion, small, controlled, blew the auxiliary door in the delivery bay. The lights flickered. Screams. A guard's voice. We got a man down. Possible shooter in uniform. Cole grabbed Shafat's arm. Get Jarman out. Now. Secure Mercer. Shafat unclipped the leash. He's faster without me. Jarman bolted. Down the stairs. Toward the breach. His paws didn't falter. His nose was up, tracking. He knew the scent. He remembered. The woods. Grace Atwood was bound to a tree. Duct tape across her mouth. Wrists tied behind her. A cut on her forehead leaked into her hairline. She was conscious, barely. Tress stood 5 feet away, pacing with a shovel. This didn't have to happen, Grace, he muttered. You were always smarter than the rest. But you just couldn't let it be. He glanced toward the woods. His ears twitched. Leaves shifted, then stopped. He reached for the pistol tucked in his waistband. Too late. The dog came in silent, a blur of fur and teeth. Jarman lunged straight for the hand, holding the weapon. Gunfire cracked. Once. Twice. But the shots missed. The third didn't come. Because Tress was on the ground, arm mauled, blood pouring from the shredded sleeve. And the dog, eyes locked, wasn't backing off. Prison dispatch, minutes later. Suspect in custody. Came the officer's breathless voice. Repeat. Suspect is down. Injuries from K9. 1 hostage recovered. Alive. Cole let out a sound between a sigh and a prayer. Shafat leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. Mercer still stood at the bars, watching it unfold through the silence. Dawn. It was over. Tress was taken into federal custody. Grace was hospitalized. Concussion, blood loss, fractured wrist. But she'd live. And the tape recorded on Tress's body cam, footage he never intended to share, told everything. His obsession with Anna, the night he followed her home. the fear in Milo's eyes as he attacked him, and the twisted pleasure Tress took in taking the dog as a trophy. Milo had been broken, reconditioned, retrained, until Jarman. Jarman was Milo's son. The same blood, the same instinct, the same memory. The reason Mercer's scent hadn't triggered hostility was because it was familiar. Mercer had saved Milo that night, hidden him in the barn, bandaged his paw, then left before police arrived. Milo had survived, but he never barked again. 1 week later, Mercer stood at the edge of the prison grounds, ankle monitor secured, court-appointed escort waiting, exonerated, officially, but not free, not really. Grace approached slowly, arms still in a sling. She handed him a manila envelope. Inside, a handwritten apology from the DA, a check, a picture of Ana Delgado. "I believe what I needed to believe," she said. "I'm sorry for that." He nodded once. "So did I." Jarman trotted up beside them. Grace kneeled and ruffled his ears. "Your dad was a good dog," she whispered. "But you saved a man." Later that night, Jarman lay on the porch of Shafat's cabin, head resting on his paws. Shafat sat beside him, bottle of water in one hand, Mercer's release paperwork in the other. No one cried when they exonerated him. He said quietly, "But everyone cried when they saw you." The dog lifted his head. The porch creaked. Cicadas buzzed in the distance. And then Jarman did something he hadn't done in days. He barked, just once, short, soft, and then he rested again. Epilogue, 3 months later. Lyle Mercer never left town. He worked at the animal shelter, mostly nights. Kept to himself. Didn't say much. But every Wednesday, a dog came to visit. Jarman. No leash. No handler. Just a quiet knock on the door. And Mercer always opened it. Because some ghosts don't come back to haunt. Some come back to heal.